Okay, everyone, this is the masterclass on how to get more yeses, raise your rates, and train your office staff on objection handling when you are trying to make this work. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through each one of the steps necessary. And a lot of this happens before you ever have the physical consultations with someone. But walk you through the necessary steps to achieve a higher rate. So this is our 4 steps to getting higher rates for your private practice and more yeses on your consults. First off, it really starts with your mindset. The mindset around money, the mindset around why people spend money to work with you, and the mindset for why someone would pay $100 a session versus $300 a session. And because it's not just about their income level. And that's a big discrepancy that we'll dive into. Next is, how do you pre-frame your consultation with your brand in such a way that, again, you get more yeses and people will pay you a higher rate for your services or your programs? And then how do you have a call frame, a frame that makes sense for you and your services? This is a sales process on the consultation physically to achieve more yeses and then ultimately handle objections. So the first thing that I want to talk about is knowing your worth. After talking to thousands of counselors over the last couple of years, I can't tell you how many of them are on the feast or famine framework of things. That just means they aren't consistent in their rates, in their sales process, and really in their income throughout the year. So 1 month or 1 quarter, they might make $5,000-$6,000 a month. And then around the holidays or in the summers or when their clients turn over, they've got 2 or 3 months where they make almost zero income because their referral sources aren't consistent enough. And one of the ways to think about this is, one, on a mindset level, you need to be charging enough to make a living. And that can look differently depending on the area of the country you're in or your family needs and some of those things, but you need minimum viability. You spent a long time acquiring the expertise that you currently have, and you need to be paid proportionate to the amount of time and investment you've put into yourself. So what are you doing, and what's the price point to justify the amount of experience that you have? And then here's the other secret. Less clients is more. It's more for you and it's more for your clients. Any clinician that I've ever spoken to that's seen 40 or 50 clients in a week is always burnt out and is always struggling to keep their head above the water. And they're never growing and they're never achieving the other goals that they want to be. And I know that that's affecting the quality of their service. The clinicians that usually provide the best service, or the practices that usually provide the best service, are the ones only seeing 15 to 25 clients on a weekly basis. So for you, charging $150 a session instead of $90, or charging $250 per session instead of $150, is a service not just to the client that's paying that, but to all of your clients, because you're making a living income and you're justifying your experience while having more to give each individual person from session to session. And then the cheapest or the most expensive require the same amount of work. And it does you no good to be somewhere in the middle. Well, let me break that down a little bit further. In your guys' industry, completing your service costs you 1 hour of time, maybe a little bit more with administration work. But that one-on-one session, 50 minutes, 1 hour, whatever it is, that costs the same amount of time. So why is one person charging 30 and one person charging 300? You, being an average priced therapist, other than for someone to know that you cost relatively the same as someone else, does you know competitive advantage. Being cheaper than the average therapist in your area is a competitive advantage because more people will come to you for that price breakdown. Just as being the most expensive or the top 5% of costs in your area. So if the average price of therapy is $150 in your area, going to $200, going to $300 is something that just because your price point alone is going to make you stand out considerably. So keep that in mind, that being in the middle does you very little because you're going to just look like and feel like the 10, 20, 30 other option that that person might have when they're scrolling through Psychology Today. And then this is a great way to think about it. 25 clients a week, 48 weeks out of the year. So that gives you 4 full weeks off. $150 per session is over $180,000 in annual revenue for your business. After taxes, after business costs, after advertising, you're easily making between 120 and maybe upwards of 140, depending on how you're structuring things off of that. What would your life and your practice look like if you were achieving those types of results consistently? So in Know Your Worth, the other exercise that you need to do when coming up with your price is not looking peer to peer, but asking yourself those earlier questions of what do you need to make? What is it to justify your experience? What is it to create a lesser more? But then why should they pay you more? You need to come up with 3 good reasons why they should pay you more than the therapist next door. And concrete, solid, beautiful reasons. It can be your expertise. It can be your life experiences. It can be the quality of your education. It can, whatever it is, you need a foundational approach to your mindset on why you are worthwhile, why you are worth on an hourly basis that 300 or that 700 or that 1,500 a session. We know people who charge that much cash pay. And again, it's not just about how much income the person is making. So what are your top 3 whys for these things? And then be okay with having more consults, but taking on less people. Let me ask you this. Would you rather do 10 15-minute consults a week and end up with 3 to 5 sessions that are paying you $300 and will stick with you for 6 to 8 months? Or would you rather do 5 consultations and have all 5 of those book, but they're paying you $100 a session or $90 a session? It's a no-brainer. Spend the 10 minutes with those couple individuals and have a much easier life. And then that kind of gets into referral generation. Where are your referrals coming from? How quality are they? How are they warmed up? And we'll get to that next. But just know that the name of the game for having a higher worth on your session rate is taking more consultations. So next, you want to also be able to we're going to be pre-framing your consults with a better brand. Let me ask you this. What is recently a service you paid more for or an experience you paid more for than a single base cost? There are other options out there in the market that you didn't go with and you spent more than maybe either the typical because it was worth the money. So I have a ring here. It's called the Aura ring, and it's a very expensive little piece of tech. It essentially does everything that the Fitbit does in terms of tracking and heart rate and sleep monitoring and a bunch of other things, but it all fits within inside of a ring. One, wearing a ring fits me a little bit better, but this is 2 to 3 times the price of a Fitbit. The way that they achieved that was the deliverables upon their service accomplished the same thing as a Fitbit does for $90, but I paid $300 for this. Their brand, their experience, and their deliverables constructed in a way that made me want to purchase this service went a long ways. So here are some top options for delivering a better brand experience. Delivering automatic emails and text messages as soon as someone calls or fills out a form on your website with relevant information, with relevant prognoses and other things. So they feel like you got in contact with them right away. This will increase your brand value. Paid ads. Someone searching for just a therapist and they don't know what they want from Psychology Today will be looking for the most available or the most immediate option. Running paid ads to individuals and you coming up in Google or you coming up in Facebook and Instagram or even TikTok is a great way to increase your perceived brand value because they are experience you in a different atmosphere than them always going out and searching for you or them going out and just finding you off of a listing site or an insurance carrier. Plus, you need to find different ways to get clients outside of insurance carriers if you want a higher cash pay rate. Then next is videos. And this is the number one thing that counselors are sleeping on. Informal, low budget, personalized videos just shot from your cell phone where they get to experience you, the quality of your service, your personality, and who you are before they ever hop on a consult. You can send that to them in an email and text message follow-up. When they schedule a consult with you or post-consult, you can send them an introductory video or a value video to talk them through what to expect or how to help. Putting videos on your listing sites, putting videos for all of your clinicians or yourself on your website. You should always be looking in this day and age, anywhere where you see a big chunk of text or a big paragraph, that probably should be a video. And a video with a call to action, again, building the value of their brand. Here's the thing, the quicker, the better, and the more empathetically you can solve the person's need for why they're coming to counseling or be honest about the length of time it will be for them to work on the things that you're working, and the more specific you can exude expertise on that topic, the more likely someone is to pay a higher amount for you and your services. The other way that you really can increase your brand is to be featured in news sources and podcasts. This is something like using us to put together a press release for yourself. This is getting featured on other counselors' blogs, on other counselors' podcasts, on other counselors' social media, and layering those features strategically in your website, in your listing sites, and in your other sources, in your paid ads. I recently saw someone saying like the #1 ADHD coach in the space. And they listed out being featured in CNN, the Los Angeles Times, and all these other things. They work to be featured for their services. Their perceived value for their programs and their processing is way higher now. If you're a namesake in your community, people are going to be willing to pay for your services. And then lastly, you have to improve the quality of your referrals if you want to charge a higher rate. I said this a couple times, but it doesn't matter for a lot of these things where the referrals coming from and how much money they make on a yearly basis, because they spend money, and this is you simply charging for a service that they want and they want help with in an expert way. However, there is some truth. Someone who makes, someone who makes $50,000 versus someone who makes 100 or someone who makes 200,000 plus are going to be in a different liquid income category to potentially spend $600 to $1,500 on your services versus, $200 to $400, or wanting to use insurance for their services. So you really need to improve the quality of your referrals. How do you do that? Well, let me ask you this. Where do you think the lowest quality referrals come from? Psychology Today, other listing sites, random Googles, word of mouth, whatever it is. You need to see where your lowest quality referrals are coming from, the ones that never want to pay your rate. And you need to eliminate them, or you need to not accept referrals from those areas. Or you just get very upfront with how much you cost on your site today and some of those things. However, to really improve the quality of referrals, you need to generate new sources of referrals. So let me ask you this. If you are charging $300 per session and you spend $150 to acquire one client through paid ads, so a Facebook and Instagram ad targeted towards an income demographic of people that can afford paying $1,200 a month for your services, would it be worth $150 to spend on marketing to run that and get them to book you a session? Well, of course. What about $300? Is it worth spending $300 to acquire one customer who you're going to make $1,200 off of month one? Well, of course. So you have to look at it in a slightly different way. There are ways to improve and dip into new circles, but sometimes you just have to be willing to spend the money to improve the quality of your referrals. So next, I want to get into the actual call frame. So you've done all of these things. You've pre-framed your consult, so people are excited and ready to work with you. You know your work. You know why you want to charge what you want to charge, and you know you're going to stick to it. And you know that you aren't going to be in a feast or famine category anymore. So you're on that consult. I'm going to address the sales side of things. I have closed hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably over millions of dollars worth of business in the last 5 years here in a sales category, from running consults and running sales calls. And so I know the context that people are. Getting someone to say yes to something is the same process, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that makes sense to people's brains to evaluate whether they want to say yes or no to the offer you're making. And here's the number one tip. You have to be willing to let anyone walk away because they're a good fit for your service. If you are always trying to just fill that next slot because you need it, well, that's not a service to them or to why they're coming to you for therapy. So what I'm not going to talk about is the first half of the call, that first 5 to 6 minutes where, you're empathizing with them, you're figuring out why they called, you're figuring out what the topics and issues are. That's for you to do as a therapist. And I'm not a licensed counselor, so I would admonish you to maybe speak to some of your other clinicians and your other friends on how to do that well. My number one tip, and most counselors know this, is to keep it concise. Keep your questions concise, and don't be afraid to cut off the client to transition them to needing to set up a full call with you. A good consult should last 10 to 15 minutes maximum. So that being said, after you find out what they are looking for, here's the frame that you need to put them through. You need to repeat back to them what their needs are. So, Mrs. Jones, it really sounds like what you're coming to me for is the fact that you're really just experiencing some heavy anxiety around some work-life balance things, and that's flowing over to your relationship and how well you can love on your kids, and you're just looking for some help and support in solving that. Does that sound correct, Mrs. Jones? Yeah, that's exactly what I need, or that's exactly what I'm looking for. Great. Excuse me. So then you state how you would help with those needs. So you as a counselor, how do you help with those needs? Part of that is your experience. Well, great. I have been working with people in your exact scenario for 10 years now, or I've been helping people solve some of the things you just described for 5+ years now. So layer some of your expertise in there so they get excited about the fact that, oh, maybe this person can help me. What I would like to do with you, Mrs. Jones, is typically I work with someone week to week in 50-minute sessions, and I would be able to help you in those sessions with X, Y, and Z with these types of skills. Simple enough. And then you transition to a close. You let them know all of the relevant information. If they're calling you or they're on a consult, they want to be sold. They want to sign up with you, right? So Mrs. Jones, right now, I do have some availability on a couple different days. So in a second, we'll open up our schedules if it's a good fit to get you in and scheduled for a weekly session. So let's take a look at that. And we'll go from there. Now, let me explain, and then you move into the price. Let me explain a little bit how our pricing works. So right now I charge $150 per session. This is out of network. So right now we don't provide super bills or any insurance carriers, and that would be billed monthly. So how does that sound? Should we get you on the calendar? And you make the ask. You share the price, and then you make the ask. Mrs. Jones, it's going to be $300 per session. We bill that monthly. If that works for your budget, let's get you on the schedule. It's going to be $300 monthly. Would you like to start working on those issues you described with me? Would you like to start to see me at that rate starting next week? You can get even really aggressive if the person seems like they're shooing. It's going to be $300 a session. We bill that monthly. Would you like to get started next week or the following week? And that's it. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. You just need to have a set process in place. Now, what if they say no? What if that doesn't work for them? And some of those related things. Well, let's go through this. A couple things that are going to help you close more deals, and we're actually not going to go there yet. So objection handling. Well, what if they're like, oh, I was really hoping to use my insurance? You know, that might be an objection you have. I'm sorry, at this time, I don't accept insurance. But I'd still love to see you if that works for you out of pocket. And be okay with them walking away if they say no. And if they're still like, oh man, I was really hoping to use my insurance. And this next response works as well if they're like, oh man, that's just really outside of my budget to spend that much on therapy. Well, no worries. Typically what someone does is they'll start with me every other week as they're getting started, and then we'll go from there to help you on a budget level. How does that sound? You know, just because someone can't, would you as a counselor, I should say it this way, rather see someone every other week at $300 per session or every week at $150 a session? It's the same cost to the client. However, it's a drastically different experience for you as a therapist. The other thing that you can do, and the other really good response that you could have if they're saying, oh, it's just too much, or some of those things, before you ever get into like a drop down or a sliding scale or anything else, you affirm, hey, Mrs. Jones, I understand that that can be a lot for a lot of people. However, what most people typically do is they do one session and we get that on the calendar. We see how it goes, and then we continue after that if it seems like it's helping you in the ways that you want. Would you be open to setting up at least your first session and seeing how it goes from there? You constrict what they are saying yes to. So them saying yes to one $300 session is very different emotionally than them saying yes to them in their head. Oh man, I was going to go to therapy. And if I spend $300 per session, man, that's going to be whatever a month, that's going to be 12 months. Oh my goodness. And like suddenly that number is really big in their head as the wheels are turning, and man, all this just to solve anxiety. No. You want to look at this, and if they're struggling with that decision, you want to boil it down to an easy thing that they can do. Mrs. Jones, typically what most people do is schedule one session, they see how it goes, and then we schedule more from there if it makes sense. How does that sound? I could get you on the calendar next week or the following week, and then you set them up. And then we've got a couple other things that are going to help you close more deals within the frame. Number one, a quick response to inquiries. This is absolutely essential. Someone who is in need, actively looking for a therapist, whether they schedule a call with you, or they called, or they emailed, responding within that first 5 minutes or first hour is absolutely essential, because they are in an atmosphere where they want help, and they're probably in a buying atmosphere. I'm looking for an immediate need to set this up. Talking to them 2 weeks after the fact, the chaos could have diminished. The issue could have gotten buried again, and before they get triggered and it pops up again, whatever it is, the quicker you can respond, the better. And my number one recommendation is automate this using a software like Therapy Flow. Automatic emails, automatic text messages, automatic videos being sent to them. So that way, within the first 5 minutes of them filling out a form, scheduling a call, clicking on your website, they get something from you that shows that you are responding and following up with them. Now, the back half of this is not just a quick response, but following up consistently. Following up consistently is absolutely essential, because just because that person said no on the call, how many times have you followed up with someone after they've said no? Most counselors don't. Well, what if they went and contacted seven other therapists later on that week, and all of them weren't a good fit, or all of them, they didn't feel like we're going to help them what they were going to help from, but either A, they feel awkward coming back and contacting you, or B, they just needed an extra little nudge because you were the best fit for them. If they never get another email or text or call from you ever again, they're not going to work with you. So after every session, yes or no, they should probably get an email and text message with next steps. Hey, Mrs. Jones, it seemed like today things weren't going to be a good fit for you. However, here's some extra resources and information if that ever changes. Call to a booking link, another video explaining you and your process, how to get started with free resources and some of those things. You're building your brand for now and for later, because that person is going to remember you, and they're going to refer other people to you, or they're going to come back in 6 months when they didn't find a therapist and they're like, man, that lady who charges $300 an hour, she's probably worth it because this is still going on in my life. Follow up consistently. Monthly newsletters, monthly videos, monthly updates, monthly blogs, and so forth. And here's the number one thing you need to start doing is you always ask for the yes. Not asking is killing your business. Being afraid to put your rate out there and have them say no. Being afraid to ask for them to get started with just one session is killing your business. And always have a plan if they say no. Put them in a wait list. Put them in a group. Put them on your monthly email list. Even have the words ready. Oh, I'm not ready to do it at that rate. No worries, Mrs. Jones. Typically what people do is they'll work with me once a month, or I can actually, if that's really struggle, I can knock $20 off of a session and we can do it for $280. How does that sound? Sometimes a little bit makes a big difference, but not asking for it is killing your business. Having wishy-washy ways is killing your business. Giving a timid response for how to move forward with you is killing your business. And there's a lot of ways you can enrich your sales call, and it's needed for the higher amount that you charge. But always ask for a yes, confidently and specifically. Does that work for you? Would you like to get started next week? And so forth. Now, I just went through some objection handling and other things. One of the big concepts, and it was kind of layered into this, is when you start doing these calls and you are finding that people say no for varying reasons, or they are giving certain objections. That's too much money. I want to use my insurance. I fill in the blank. Those are opportunities for you to pre-handle those before they ever get in a call. So let's say you run a Facebook ad, right? And all the people who come from the Facebook ad want to use their insurance. Well, the way you pre-handle that objection is you put on the Facebook ad, I do not accept insurance. Well, great. That's going to reduce the amount of people that are looking for your insurance. That's a really blunt way. One of the ways that we as a company pre-handle objections when someone hops on a sales call with us is we have testimonials and we have our Facebook group that people can join. So hopefully they're watching testimonials or they're reading testimonials. If you get some good Google reviews, toss that Google review link in an email to them before they're on a consultation. That's going to allow you to pre-handle the objection of, does this therapist do what they say they do? Is this someone that can help me? Always have a script. This is especially important for training your staff. You need a script for how you say the things, and you especially need it in a framework setting, just like I showed you that framework earlier. Train your team. Take recordings of yourself. Take recordings of the calls you're on. So that way, and then role play with them consistently. Go over the script. Don't expect people to do a good job at this. And even more so, if you're training yourself on this, have you ever created a script for your consultation and role played it out loud, especially the close component? If you want to charge more, you have to upgrade and level up the way that you speak to these clients and get them to say yes. And then lastly, and this is more true than anything that I ever went over on here today, is you need to generate more referrals. Here's the thing. Most counselors are afraid to ask for the amount that they want, which is usually between the 150 and 250 range. Most counselors are afraid to ask for that amount, cash pay from clients, because they need more clients and they never have enough. That's the feast or famine atmosphere. So the number one way that you can have confidence to grow your practice and charge a rate that makes sense for you and your family is by having more than enough referrals to always not be afraid that more are going to come down the pipeline. So if you have 10 consultations a week or 15 consultations a week, you're not going to be afraid if one of them says no. If you have one consultation a week and you need 15 new clients, well, you're going to be very afraid that that person is not going to sign up. We've got another video series that's called the 5 for 5 method, and that's 5 referrals coming from 5 different referral sources. So 25 referrals on a monthly basis for a single practice owner. Check that out if you need to generate more referrals, so that way you can have the consistency and the confidence to charge your cash pay rate. And as we wrap up here, if you're watching the replay on this video, or if you're on our YouTube channel, check out our website. And a couple of the things that we do paid advertising to generate referrals for you. We work on practice growth for you a lot. We do blogging for you consistently. We do automation and calendar software integrations. We also have a free Facebook group for you to join, to go over a lot of these principles, to receive trainings like you just watched, as well as to get access to resources to generate more referrals and build the business that you've always dreamed of. I hope this training helped on how to generate more referrals and build your business and increase your rates.